Okay, I think we're all ready. Mariaka, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session, Building a Credible Sustainability Strategy. Report, Reduce, Offset, Communicate. My name is Marika Andrega, and I'm delighted to be joined today by two experts who bridge the technical and practical sides of corporate climate action. So from Bureau Veritas, we have Alexandra Petunsky, Principal Consultant in the Sustainability Business Unit. Alexandra is a seasoned climate consultant and strategist with over 7 years of experience in carbon markets and environmental compliance. She's worked across multiple industries, delivering assurance services under international verification standards. And then from Terra Natural Capital, we have Andrew Machuca, and she's an expert in voluntary carbon markets and corporate sustainability strategy across the EU and the MENA region. She's been advising corporates on building credible climate roadmaps from Scope 2, 1 and 2 data to integrating offsets and ESG frameworks. So today we're going to take you through what we like to call the A to Z roadmap of sustainability. Report, reduce, offset, communicate. So we will keep it conversational. Alex and Andrew will share insights, experiences, and stories from the field. So let's get started. So welcome, Alex. So why is accurate data collection considered the cornerstone of any sustainability strategy?
Thank you, everyone. And I'm really excited to be here with you today. It's a very quick question because the answer basically leads us to the foundation of a strong and credible sustainability strategy. Whether aiming for net zero carbon goals or preparing for CDP disclosure or seeking to avoid regulatory or reputational risk, a company's ability to accurately identify, quantify, and report emissions basically sets the strategy for credible climate action. And I would add that we by the GHG emission, sometimes we can observe that data related to electricity or gas consumptions were not properly reported, and this could lead to significant cost for the company. So it's not only about GHG data, but it's also about identifying correct data reporting and identify potential costs that shouldn't happen. And the first step in the carbon accounting journey is to calculate Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. But whether this is first time when a company undertakes this exercise or it's part of the annual recalculation, the challenges can be significant. Because without implementing a structure, reporting logic, and following reporting standards, for example, GHG protocol guidance, organizations risk both under or over reporting their emissions, which can undermine the credibility of ESG disclosures.
Yeah, that is very clear. So what key regulations and standards should be taken into account by corporates, Alex?
As we can see in many areas, the reporting of GHG emissions is no longer voluntary, but became or will become a compliance obligation. So one of the most important frameworks to understand today is obvious, the CSRD, even in the context of Omnibus. And for everyone, the Omnibus proposal is the initiative by the European Commission to simplify reporting requirements, particularly for CSRD. But the CSRD mandates transparent disclosures of carbon emissions and climate risk, working alongside other frameworks like IFRS, GRI, or CSSB, to create unified sustainability reporting standards for investors and stakeholders.
So, and if it comes to collecting of the data, how can companies practically, put that in practice? How can they collect and structure the emissions data, especially across scope 1, 2, and 3?
Yes, it's critical, Marieke, and another that I would say that a very, very important piece of document before companies starting these journeys to understand what are the roles, what are the boundaries, and through the process of verification, a piece of document that we require is the basis of reporting. The basis of reporting, as I said, it's a critical step. Basis of reporting is an important document. It can be a standalone document, or the information can be uploaded in the sustainability section of company's website. And it's developed by the company and made available for the stakeholders to increase transparency over the data reported. So before calculating the GHG or before starting the reporting for a company, it's critical to understand what are the KPIs that are included, what is the reporting criteria, what are the responsibilities, what is the adherence to standards. As we know, there are many reporting standards, and inherent limitations if applicable. As we know, many times when reporting GHG data, we don't have actual data, and companies need to have to use assumptions when reporting the data. So the definition of assumptions, the standard use, everything has to be included in this basis of reporting. And because setting accurate emission boundaries, it's rarely straightforward, as a lot of us know. Misinterpretation often occur because corporate structure do not fit neatly in one model. So defining who owns, controls, or influence an activity is key to correctly allocating emissions. And yes, once scope 1 and data are established, because is the starting point of the carbon journey, is where we have most of the data available. Of course, the next natural step is to go towards scope 3. And what we recommend to our companies is to start with the readiness of gap assessment, which is the best approach to ensure that accurate collection and calculation of indirect emissions are done.
Okay, thank you, Alex. So once you start collecting the data and you start working on a report, what are really the common pitfalls you've seen in corporate sustainability reports, and which should be really avoided?
Yes, also really important to pay attention to the pitfalls. And I would say that the most common pitfalls include inaccurate or incomplete data collection for various reasons, limited stakeholder engagement, and not well defined or just unattainable targets. Many companies also sometimes underestimate the time and resources required for a robust disclosure, but also not including the supply chain in the reporting is another recurring issue. Scope 3 often represents the majority of companies' footprint, but remain underreported, as I said, for various reasons. Either because actual data is not available, or it's very difficult to collect. And finally, another mistake is treating ESG reporting as a side project rather than a strategic business function. The companies that succeed are those that embed sustainability into their decision making and governance. And we have many examples of companies who require exactly this support. How can we embed sustainability in our strategy? Because these have to go hand in hand.
Yeah, thanks, Alex, for sharing these valuable insights and your experience in this field. So then we go to Anjut. Anjut, thanks for joining us today. Anjut, once companies have measured and reported their footprints, then the question is, what's next? So how do they move from data to action?
Yeah, thank you, Marieke, for having me and for your question. I think the second part really adds upon Alex's expertise in which he currently shared about building and collecting data. But I think it's important to always remember that the next step to translating this data is actual truthful climate action. And when I speak about climate action, I think the hierarchy here is very clear. You begin by avoiding emissions, then reducing as much as possible, and then investing in carbon credits. And here the efforts should really showcase that you're only using carbon credits to offset residual emissions that cannot be eliminated through other operational changes, right? So I think a credible decarbonization pathway here should follow this sequence, ensure that every ton of carbon credit is part of a broader pathway that is science-aligned strategy towards achieving net zero ultimately, because I think right now a lot of companies are committing to net zero, claiming net zero emissions, and then not focusing on building a truthful carbon credit strategy, which really should be the basis of achieving net zero, right? Because ultimately we cannot achieve this target without carbon credits.
No, indeed. So yeah, when it comes to offsets, of course, sometimes it's still unclear for many companies where they should look at. So and where they should focus on. So how can companies identify and select high integrity carbon credits that they can use for these purposes?
Yep, excellent question. We've been hearing high integrity credits as a new buzzword in the market, and I think that's mainly because of new guidelines and new bodies that have been established in the market, such as VCMI, that are here to guide us into what high integrity credit is. But to summarize from my perspective, a carbon credit in all cases should represent a real additional and measurable verified either avoidant or removal credit. And according to VCMI, we have right now the core carbon principles that ensure delivering real climate impact, and we've seen a lot of companies already establishing their due diligence on carbon credits according to these principles, which must include additionality. And in this case, additionality would represent that the project would not have happened without this carbon finance. And I think this is the core principle, at least for me, to make sure that carbon financing is really making an impact here. Then we have permanence. Here we should just showcase that the carbon benefit should be long lasting, with clear safeguard measures, which is essential for every carbon project to exist. And obviously, robust MRV measurement, reporting, and verification through an independent third-party verification under credible standards. And I think in today's market, it's kind of obvious which standards we should be looking into and relying on when we want to make investments into the carbon market. And lastly, and obviously, we've been talking about this for years now, no more double counting, and credits must be uniquely issued. I think these are the main cores of what makes up a high integrity credit, but obviously companies should always look beyond this and beyond these principles and make sure that there are also other co-benefits to what a carbon credit is. So for instance, people and planet, and really a lot of carbon credits have a diverse criteria of co-benefits that they deliver to, and you should make sure that they align with what your brand and what your company values in. So, for example, biodiversity protection, water security, climate resilience, supporting local livelihoods. So I wouldn't stop at just GHG emission reduction. I'd look further into it and see what really represents my brand and my company in terms of value.
Yeah, so we got now we got a better view of what a high integrity carbon credit actually is. That you need to look at co-benefits as well, which is very important in this space, especially nowadays. So, but when I look how like when at what moment do you buy this credit? Should you buy it on the spot market, or should you rather invest early in future projects? What is better for companies to do?
I don't think we can categorize it in what is better, but rather what really fits the company's risk appetite and their sustainability maturity, right? So if a company needs immediate compensation to showcase, then obviously here spot purchases provide that and provide verified emissions to immediately retire or showcase compensation for. But I think forward and early stage investments really get you involved with a carbon credit project, and it allows companies to finance future impact. And this really showcases a commitment from companies as well. I think the best approach, if a company is capable to take this risk, has this risk appetite, is to combine a portfolio approach of both. So securing near-term credits that are already in the market, that are already issued for current year's compensation, while investing in long-term removals. And especially, I think, having a blend of different types of credits. So here it might be avoidance, different technologies of removals. Not all of them are currently issued in the market. So securing your demand for these type of technologies that are being issued in the near future, early investment is quite a smart move. But obviously, a lot of companies need an immediate compensation, and therefore purchasing in the correct spot credits is always a good mix of both.
Yeah, so it's not really about what is better, but more what fits the company in its journey. So, and in the market, there are many options, as you point out. So how can a company actually start with building its own carbon credit portfolio?
That's a tricky one, and I think a lot of companies usually come to experts in the market to decide this, because it does get a bit overwhelming with the different types of credits that are available, different locations, different methodologies and technologies, and of course, different standards that these projects are registered in. So firstly, I would advise whoever's in charge at the company, whether it's the sustainability team or the procurement team, to not feel so overwhelmed, to take it a step by step and think strategically. Think about what the company values, why they're purchasing these credits, and then from there on, define a clear criteria selection, define your due diligence, look at other companies that have been, let's say, rewarded as best market practice, or that have been offsetting with high integrity and with truthful due diligence. See what worked for other companies and what might work for you if replicated. So identify the project type that really aligns with your values, the criteria, the standard, and the additional SDGs that the carbon credit might achieve in this case. And then obviously, and I think this is essential in any carbon credit portfolio, is to diversify the types and the technologies that you're investing in and relying on, whether it's avoidance such as forest protection or clean cook stoves, and then adding a bit of removal such as reforestation or biochar. And obviously this would adhere with many other guidelines that we see in the market, such as Oxford Principles. And then I think in order to build a carbon credit portfolio that is very truthful and really resembles your brand values, is to find the right partner that helps you in doing so. As I said before, the market can get very overwhelming for outside participants or new participants in the market There are many technologies, many credits that we, many projects that we once thought are high integrity and valued very highly just to lose some ratings on some rating agencies. So really partner with a supplier that can guide you through all of this and can take you step by step into investing in a carbon credit portfolio. And make sure that the credits, obviously, we didn't mention this yet, but that there's ensure transparency and traceability, and rely on trusted registries here.
Yeah, that is very clear, Andrew. Thank you very much. So now we go to the last step in the chain, which is the communication. So how can companies make sure their sustainability actions are communicated credibly? And what would be the role of assurance and partnership? Yeah, what role would they play in that? Alex and Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Marieke. Transparency for the stakeholders, it's critical. Yeah, as I mentioned already, that basis of reporting, which should be available for the stakeholders, time company reports the data is essential. So basically today the transparency is no longer optional, is an expectation, and we could notice that because many companies come to us and say, we would like to verify the data because we want to take a sustainability linked loan, or we have some clients that would like to have that request the carbon footprint verified by a third party for the product or the service we are selling. So across markets, we are seeing greater scrutiny on how companies report their sustainability performance, not only, as I said, from regulators, but from investors and from clients. And I provided earlier the example. And also it's critical for the board members at Bureau Veritas. We are increasingly asked to brief board members on the evolving climate legislation landscape. So it's critical. Transparency, it's critical. Third-party verification brings credibility. And this shift reflects a growing recognition that credible reporting builds trust, but the trust only holds when disclosures are verified, consistent, and reflect the company true environmental and social performance. So assurance in that sense is not anymore about compliance, as I already provided a few examples of legislation, California Climate Bill and CSRD, at least 2 pieces of legislation that require the data verified by a third party, but it's about integrity.
And Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, certainly. I think just to add some perspective to what Alex mentioned, I would really emphasize on the how part, how companies are communicating and telling their story. But before beginning on deciding on how they want to communicate this externally, I think it's important for companies to recognize that when they're offsetting or when they're publishing a sustainability strategy, it's not just to gain some, let's say, ESG scores into like, here, I've invested and this is what I do now, and I have a carbon credit portfolio, but really embed like a long-term climate investment portfolio in their day-to-day operation. So I wouldn't look at it that just a checklist at the end of the day that I've offsetted my emissions, but really make sure that this is a long-term investment that I am committed to and is integrated into my sustainability strategy. And after doing so, then I think once you're convinced internally that this is an actual truthful investment that represents my brand values, then I'll go externally and communicate the how part and how I tell this story So it's not really about publishing data. It's not really just disclosing your emissions. It's more about showing the impact that you've done behind these numbers and the efforts it took and the positive impact on the people and the ecosystem. And I think to achieve this, and I've mentioned this previously, is to really find a truthful partner that will not just check off a checklist of to-do lists in order to have a sustainability strategy, but a partner that is expert in the market enough to challenge and guide you through what can come next, mitigate risk in terms of next regulations that might be upcoming, ensure that you are communicating truthfully and not, let's say, over promising on what you've done. So I think this is very essential. And I think the last thing is to always rely on data-driven insights as well. And a truthful partner will always look at other authentic stories and make sure that anything you communicate is equally authentic.
Exactly, absolutely. I can't agree more with Jude. Credible communication is where verification meets vision. Companies that invest in both technical accuracy and transparent storytelling are the ones that will build a long-term trust with their customers, basically with their stakeholders.
Yeah, well, thank you both, Alex and Jude, for sharing these practical insights. I think it's very useful for companies when they want to start on this journey. So just to recap, in today's session, we've seen how credible reporting, real emission reductions, and high integrity offsets come together to create meaningful climate action. So the key takeaway from this is report with accuracy, reduce with intent, offset with integrity, and communicate with confidence. So that is how companies move from compliance to climate leadership. So let's now open the floor for your questions. Feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the chat. Yeah, so I see one question coming in. I think that should be from Alex. For Alex, given the increased complexity of global supply chains, how can companies ensure the accuracy of Scope 3 emissions data when much of it depends on third-party suppliers?
Thank you. Yes, a great question, and mainly because Scope 3 has the highest impact in the total for most of the companies in the total carbon footprint. So most of the companies, when there is no actual data available, they follow the GHG protocol, doing the calculation based on spend base. But we observe that they want and they are aiming to have at some point actual data. And this is a big effort for themselves, for the suppliers, for the supply chain, because it's complex. Data is not available. Sometimes in supply chain, we do not see resources needed in order to calculate the carbon footprint. That's the reason it should be a joint effort between the company and their suppliers. And we also, and this is something that we observed this year and also in 2024, a lot of requirements from our customers for supply chain due diligence. We receive demand to do the audits on site to prove that the data is accurate. And even sometimes when the data is available, companies go beyond this and they say, we would like to help our suppliers to make sure that the data they report, the data we have in our Scope 3 is correct. Consequently, we would like a third party to support us in this. So to conclude, spend base it's currently used when the data is not available, but with the aim, as I said, we noticed that an effort to get actual data, and basically what they need is to support their suppliers in collecting correctly the data.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for this answer. So I saw another question coming in about carbon credits. So that one is for Anjut. So with so many carbon credit projects emerging globally, what practical steps can companies take to verify the credibility and long-term impact of the offsets they choose to invest in?
Good question, and I think we've seen a lot of risks taken on some projects. So I think this is a good question to ask yourself internally as well, because whatever you invest in should replicate your vision and the responsibility you're taking in investing in these carbon credits, whether removal or avoidance. We already discussed ensuring that you need to internally envision this as a long-term investment that resembles your responsibility. I've mentioned already that a truthful partner, responsible partner that has expertise in the market can guide you through this. But I think the one thing we left out are rating agencies. And I think when I mention rating agencies, it's very important for a company to make sure that they're relying on rating agencies that are actually doing the technical and scientific analysis that's going into the project and understanding the impacts of the project. Because as the market is growing, we see a lot of companies that are recently popping up and claiming ratings on certain projects without the actual work and analysis being done in these projects. So look into what's hands-on there with hands-on experience, analyzing the impact, having data-driven analysis and scientific-based analysis on why that project gained that rating, and ensure that you're following these science-based analysis methodologies. Ensure that you're relying on methodologies that have gained truthful impact, and not methodologies that no longer serve the market as they should be. We were looking at a lot of methodologies that are so old in today's market that they don't really deliver any sort of impact that needs carbon financing. So look at where the technological gap is there, and make sure you're funding projects that are very truthful in that sense to what they're really impacting. And I think also this has been a vision of Terra's as well, and I think it was established based on this funding gap that we've seen for certain methodologies that need further carbon financing. So when you choose to where to invest in, make sure that the project truthfully needed that and it's maximizing impact.
Okay, thank you very much, Anjut, for this answer. Very helpful. So I don't see any further questions. So I think that well, just to recap, thank you everyone for joining this webinar. I hope it was useful for you. Thanks, Alex and Anjut, for your insights and your experience that you wanted to share it with us. So thanks again, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.